A warm and very good afternoon and welcome to the launch of the National Sustainability Reporting Framework, NSRF. I'm Rahel Thomas. Now, as we begin, we invoke the Almighty's blessings and offer our thanksgiving. And to lead us in the dua, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my colleague, Saudara Aswan Huzaini.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A'udzu billahi minasy syaithanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin wal 'aqibatu lil muttaqin wala 'udwan illa 'alal zalimin. Sayyidina wa maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Praise be to Allah, the Lord of the universe, and the best outcome is for the righteous. As we gather this evening to seek your blessings on today's launch of the National Sustainability Reporting Framework, O Allah, grant us the strength and unity to overcome the challenges we may face as we embark on this journey towards sustainability. Grant us wisdom and guidance to implement sustainable practices that benefit our environment and society. Help us foster transparency and accountability in our endeavors. May this initiative lead to positive change and serve as a legacy of care and responsibility for the world you have entrusted to us. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adzaban nar. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Thank you, Aswan, for that very meaningful prayer. To set the stage and share some background, context, and the reason for this new reporting framework, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my chairman, Datuk Muhammad Faiz Azmi, to the stage.
I think I should start with an apology. I didn't expect to sound so sexy today. Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Senator Amir Hamzah, Azizan, Minister of Finance too. Yang Berbahagia Datuk Dr. Shahrazad Ahmad, Deputy Secretary General of the Treasury and Board Member of the SC. Members of the Advisory Committee on Sustainable Reporting, SC Board members and senior management, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good afternoon. Welcome to the Securities Exchange, the Securities Commission. One of these days I should perhaps change that because it's very difficult filling in a form. Securities Commission sounds like a guard, security guard firm. Anyway, well, you may laugh, but I've had these questions at immigration, so I've had to respond. It's like the Malaysian version of the SEC, and then they get it. Anyway, I would like to put on record our thanks to Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Senator Amir Hamzah for making time to be here this afternoon. His presence underscores the importance of the matters to be presented here today. As we are entering the fourth quarter of 2024, I would like to begin by highlighting the positive momentum in Malaysia's equity markets this year, which has had us reaching new highs that we've not had for 4 years. In tandem with the broader recovery, the IPO market has also shown exceptional growth this year. As of September 2024, some 34 companies have gone public, and of them, 29 of the 34 IPOs continue to trade higher than their original listing price, underscoring the strong confidence in public listings. This market recovery has also been driven by favorable domestic economic conditions, a recovery in corporate earnings, and the government rollout of key policies. Trading activities have surged with foreign investors returning to our market. All this reflects well on the continued efforts of the government, and particularly on the economic policy front. And hopefully with the recent US rate cuts, this recovery will continue into 2025. Which brings me to the topic of this event on the National Sustainability Reporting Framework. As we see the strong market performance, it's important to recognize that sustainability is becoming increasingly vital in driving long-term value. So I must start by recognizing the first chairman of the Securities Commission, Tan Sri Munir Majid. Among many of his accomplishments was the commissioning of this building, this home of ours at Damansara. What many of you don't know was that he had the foresight back in 1998 to commission a building that consumes 50% less power than a building of this size. In other words, we were already anticipating climate changes and the need to conserve energy 26 years ago. Fast forward 2 decades or so, my predecessor, Yang Berbahagia Datuk Seri Awang Adik Hussein, the 7th SC chairman, started the process of looking closely at 3 key pillars or focuses of the capital market relating to climate change. The first pillar is the need for a smooth transition away from fossil fuels to renewable ones. That work is to ensure that the capital market can support the government's initiatives under the National Energy Transition Roadmap, NETR, by channeling funding to support the transition. And we are now also looking at potential adaptation needs and funding for climate resilience. The second pillar was the development of the SC Malaysian taxonomy to help drive a process on how companies can identify and classify their activities in alignment with environmental, social, and sustainable objectives. This work is also continuing in the ASEAN context. There is such a thing now called the ASEAN taxonomy, which serves as a reference point for ASEAN countries in developing their national taxonomies. This is an important but challenging piece of work to try and achieve some consensus on how our collective economies can move faster to adopt low GHG emissions power. Which brings me to the third pillar, the reason why we're here today, sustainability-related disclosures. These are disclosures on top of your existing ones on financial and governance matters laid down by law or regulators and concentrates on the effect of climate change. We note the recommendations of the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, TCFD, has also been championed locally by Bursa, and the recommendations are already embedded in the listing requirements. With the recent introduction and use of IFRS S1 and IFRS S2 standards issued by the International Sustainability Standards Board, we've had to assess, again, use of these standards in the sustainability disclosure arena in Malaysia. What are they? IFRS S1 provides a general framework for disclosures on sustainability risks and opportunities, whereas S2 focuses specifically on climate-related disclosures, including GHG emissions. This is the reason why we've invited you all here today, to share our thinking on this third pillar and why we've taken the decisions that we have. So, under the NSRF, the large listed issuers in the Bursa's main market, about 130 companies, will have to comply with IFRS S1 and S2 next year, 2025, with a focus on climate disclosures and the first report being due in 2026. Many of you here today will be affected because if you are caught by this, I think it's a 2 billion requirement revenue, you represent about 80% of the market cap of Bursa. So I like slides, so I thought I'll have one, but clearly that's not working. Okay, so the remaining listed issuers on the main market, oh sorry, there we go. So if you're group 1, the top 130 companies, you come in 2025, but you're only mandated to do scope 3 in 2027. Also, many of the release, flow away. So really, it's from 2027 onwards. If you're group 2, which is everyone else on the listed board, you don't do it till 2025, and then 2 years later, you apply scope 3. And then, of course, if you're ACE or a large non-listeds, you have till 2027, again, for application much later on. So that, in essence, is what we've decided. You may be interested to know that we are using all the transition release provided by ISSB, in addition to mandating Scope 3 disclosures and audit verified reports starting only in 2027, 3 years from now. Now, setting the dates and requirements is the easy part. What we're now focusing on is how to help you comply with these new requirements. This we'll be discussing later this afternoon, but considerable effort will be spent by the SC in Bursa, as well as other members of the ACR, to help build up capability and capacity in Malaysia. These initiatives are collectively referred to as PACE. Why PACE? Sounded good. Pace you along. But if you want to know what it stands for policies, assumptions, calculators, and education. Why calculators? Because someone has to figure out activity versus emissions. So the other thing that we're doing, we're also looking at the SMEs. Now you might say, what's that got to do with listed companies? To be able to do Scope 3, you actually need the SMEs to give you some information. So you'll see that SC has already issued a document called the Simplified ESG Disclosure Guide, which was developed by Capital Markets Malaysia. And what we intend to do is to extend it backwards so that an SME can take that document with a toolkit and be able to at least get 35 key disclosures. My favorite one is, so how many employees did you kill this year? Well, died on your premises, I think is probably the politically correct term. So why are we doing all this? I appreciate that there are concerns that not all international markets have consensus on needing to do more in terms of sustainability reporting. However, as a trading country and one that has an important role in the global supply chain, it is important we adopt these requirements in an open way to reap the benefits of being an adopter. Also, it makes us more rather than less likely to meet purchaser requirements in the global supply chain, giving the increased focus on sustainability information and the number of detailed survey questions that they send out to all of you. Adopting IFRS S1 and S2 helps standardize that information. So rather than resist it, we should embrace it and use it to strategically make our markets more attractive. However, wider than economics or geopolitical concerns, we believe it's the right thing to do. Going back to my references to past chairmans, we feel that we now have an obligation to prepare the capital markets for what is to come. The first reason is because of the science. The majority consensus among scientists is the planet is warming up and that it is principally due to mankind. These warnings are loud and clear. The year 2023 was the hottest on record, and the temperatures of the oceans today continue to climb. You can observe from the news about the increasing number of droughts, fires, floods, and winds resulting from climate change from all around the world. Nearer to home, the intensity of our rainstorms and frequency of floods, particularly those recently in the northern states, can also be seen. We will be playing a short video later on trying to explain the science. So this reporting initiative, including requiring GHG emission disclosures, is an attempt for you to know what your company's own impact to the environment is. After all, you can't control what you can't measure. The other reason is more a moral or ethical one that you all have as heads of your businesses. It's been some 30 years now that the expression people, planet, profit was coined, and it neatly summarizes that the maximization of profit is not the only goal of companies. How you make that profit and its impact to people and planet is of equal concern. As a Muslim, I looked at myself recently and asked, so what does my faith tell me to do? The teachings are clear and reflected in the principles of the Maqasid Sharia, and it is actually in a document that we issued in 2023. Maqasid means the Sharia purpose or goals that we try to reduce it to principles and aspirations that we can actually use in our everyday life. A reading of the Maqasid guidance makes it very clear that we should attempt to save the environment, to recognize our obligation to preserve resources for the future generations, and the need to be transparent and accountable. I'm sure other faiths have similar views. Ladies and gentlemen, we did not take this decision to adopt these international standards lightly. We looked at experiences we had when we adopted IFRS for accounting standards a decade ago, and realized that in order to have a say in these and future standards, we have to participate. We used the findings from the public consultation and engagements we conducted earlier this year into account, and as a result, we decided to spread the adoption dates. You will note that the current Bursa listing rules actually says that Scope 1, Scope 2, and a bit of Scope 3 was actually already mandated for 2025 for the main market and 2027 for the ACE. So Bursa will be updating their rules to align the timings with NSRF. And that basically provides a bit of a longer time frame for medium and smaller listed companies. And recognizing we all need some certainty and more experts in Malaysia, we're launching initiatives this month to start to build capacity and knowledge in our own markets. Addressing climate change needs a whole of society approach. All of us need to play our part to make our country more resilient and to adapt to these climate changes. And with your help, we'll be able to mitigate the worst effects of Malaysia Madani. It starts with the first step. Please go out and measure your emissions. With that, thank you again to Yang Berhormat and to all of you for attending this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. As Chairman mentioned, we're indeed delighted that our Minister is with us this afternoon. So it is my privilege to invite the Honourable Minister to deliver the keynote address. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Yang Berhormat Senator Datuk Seri Amir Hamzah Azizan, Minister Finance 2.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yang berbahagia, Datuk Muhammad Faiz, Chairman, Securities Commission Malaysia, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, salam sejahtera, dan salam Malaysia Madani. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you this afternoon for the launch of the National Sustainability Reporting Framework, NSRF, a framework which charts Malaysia's approach for the sustainability reporting using disclosure standards issued by the International Sustainability Standards Board, as well as a framework for sustainability assurance. Malaysia now joins more than 20 jurisdictions, collectively representing 55% of global GDP, which have decided or are taking steps to use the standards. This is another significant step forward in our commitment to integrate sustainability into the core of our economic development. Sustainability is one of the core 6 values of Malaysia Madani, alongside care and compassion, respect, innovation, prosperity, and trust, the necessary foundation to build a better Malaysia for Malaysians. The NSRF was developed by the Advisory Committee on Sustainability Reporting, which was formed last year with the support of the Ministry of Finance. The committee, which is chaired by SC and comprises of the Audit Oversight Board, Bank Negara Malaysia, Bursa Malaysia, Companies Commission of Malaysia, and the Financial Reporting Foundation, developed the framework after careful consideration of various factors, including companies and ecosystem readiness, as well as the support required for the implementation. The framework is more than just a regulatory advancement. It addresses the information needs of investors and financiers to help with capital allocation decisions, and more importantly, promote economic prosperity, which is aligned with environmental stewardship and social responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, global investors are showing a renewed interest in Malaysia's reform narrative, as reflected in the optimism of the domestic capital markets and exemplified by FBM KLCI, etching new highs as well as foreign direct investments committed by global companies such as Microsoft, Google, ByteDance, and Infineon Technologies. We have seen the transformation in how investors approach their portfolios. Historically, financial metrics were the sole metric of success, but that's no longer the case today. This shift is not merely a trend, but a reflection of deeper understanding that long-term value creation is intrinsically linked with sustainable and ethical practices. Investors are evaluating companies based on environmental impact, carbon footprint, waste management, to name a few, driven by the recognition that financial risks associated with environmental degradation must be mitigated. In short, sustainability is not an option. It is a necessity. Companies worldwide are being held to higher standards of environmental and social performance, and Malaysia is no exception. The government is committed to sustainable development, and it is embedded within our policy frameworks and priorities. Malaysia is one of the 8 out of 10 countries in Southeast Asia that have announced target dates to achieve net zero carbon emission by 2050, as outlined in the 12th Malaysia Plan. To achieve these energy transition goals, we will need 1.3 trillion ringgit between now and 2050. It includes investments in renewable energy, energy efficiency, and green mobility, as outlined in the National Energy Transition Roadmap, or NETA. More must be done to ensure that investments reach the right places, with maximum impact on sustainability. In addition, with the increasing temperatures, we will also need to consider investments in responsiveness, adaptation, and resilience. The NSRF has the support of the GLICs, which are prioritizing investments that contribute to sustainability goals and addressing critical issues such as climate action, social inequality, and economic inclusivity. This is reflected in their investment and engagement policy, as well as targets, including net zero portfolio and net zero emissions for their own operations by 2050. Considering the huge financial requirements, the capital market in Malaysia must be ready to facilitate fundraising and investments to support the government's priorities in achieving its sustainability and climate goals. A reliable reporting framework is therefore needed to ensure there is reliable data and information to facilitate financing. Ladies and gentlemen, a key outcome of the NSRF is to support the ease of doing business with respect to sustainability reporting. The establishment of the ISSB and its 2 inaugural standards was driven to address the absence of a unified set of standards for sustainability reporting and the need for a single common language. Prior to this, companies across markets face the burden of complying with multiple reporting standards, which increases not just the complexity of reporting, but certainly cost. By using the ISB standards, the NSRF intends to provide companies with an internationally recognized and standardized framework to provide reliable, decision-useful, and globally comparable sustainability disclosures. The phased and developmental approach is how the NSRF will be implemented. It is designed with the intention to provide as long a runway as possible for companies to be ready. The framework also builds on reporting foundations which Bursa has put in place since 2015 through the listing requirements. Markets across the globe are moving towards a globally aligned sustainability reporting standard, and the NSRF will enable companies and Malaysia get on that trajectory. The Advisory Committee has designed implementation support in the form of training, and tools which will be made available to companies, including those which are focused on addressing the needs of medium and smaller companies. This is expected to reduce complexity and costs associated with sustainability reporting, allowing businesses to focus on what they do best, driving innovation, creating jobs, and contributing to economic growth. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I would like to encourage the companies which are scoped in under the NSRF and other companies too to embrace the framework and leverage the capacity and implementation support that will be made available. Use the framework as a tool to drive sustainable growth. We need to lead by example, showing that economic prosperity and sustainability can and must go hand in hand. On that note, it gives me great pleasure to officially launch the National Sustainability Reporting Framework. Thank you.
Thank you, Datuk Seri. If I could hold you on stage, if I could invite Chairman and Dr. Shahrazad also on stage. Chairman, on stage first, and with Dr. Shahrazad. I think we need to take the microphone from you. Yes, if we could ask you to come to the launch pad. Chairman and Dr. Shahrazad on each side, please. This is where we're going to release it. So, Dr. Seri, if I could ask you to place your palm on the launch pad and press the button, that large button. Press. Yes, there we go. You can see the video, the screen in front of you, or you can turn back the large screen. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the launch of the National Sustainability Reporting Framework. Chairman and Datuk Seri and Datuk, can I ask you to please come to the center of the stage? Just my team will help. Now, sustainability is the key word, and we have the cover of the document on an iPad. So we have units to be given. So this is the cover of the document, which will be available on the SC website. So if I could ask our three guests to please, there we go, that's right. Thank you, Datuk. Datuk Seri and Chairman, yes. Sustainability is not an option, but a must. So they're the cover of the document, a 22-page document. Thank you. Now, I think we've got the cameraman and the photographers in front. Okay, gentlemen, I need to ask you to make way. I'd like to call members of the ACSR to please come up on stage to join Chairman. If I could have Puan Salma from the SC, Encik Alex Uy, SCAOB, Encik Nick Faris, Nick Salahuddin, Bank Negara Malaysia, Encik Julian Hashim, Bursa, Dato' Zainal Abidin Putih, FRF, and Encik Muhammad Faris Othman. Now, these are the organizations that are members of the committee. We also have Datin Azalina and Puan Nur Hayati. Yes, thank you. We have, yes, thank you very much. It is in the power of the team that we have this committee, and this committee has pulled together this framework. So what do you want? The guys at the back are asking. Oh, telling the guys, the photographers, to put your heads down. Okay, there we go. Siap? Gentlemen, media, yes? Oleh? Thank you. Thumbs up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We will take the iPads from you, and I'd like to invite everyone back to their seats. Thank you very much, and then we will move on to the next item. Thank you very much. Now, if the numbers were not compelling enough, the speeches were not enough, the framework is not enough, well, we now have a very compelling video, the TED video. The title of the video is The Tipping Points of Climate Change and Where We Stand, to provide further context of the why aspects of the NSRF and demonstrating the urgency of the climate crisis. So, ladies and gentlemen, we now bring you The Tipping Points of Climate Change and Where We Stand by Johan Rockström, Director, Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research. Johan is a scientist internationally recognized for his work on global sustainability issues. There you have it. Take it away.
The Earth system scientists and climate scientists are getting seriously nervous. The planet is changing faster than we have expected. We are, despite years of raising the alarm, now seeing that the planet is actually in a situation where we underestimated risks. Abrupt changes are occurring in a way that is way beyond the realistic expectations in science. 15 years back, I introduced the planetary boundary framework, the scientific framework with the 9 Earth system processes that determines the stability, the resilience, and the life support on planet Earth. 10 years back, the world signed the Paris Climate Agreement. Almost 5 years back, we entered the decisive decade where our choices will determine the future for all generations on planet Earth. Where are we on this journey halfway into this decade? I will give you a scientific State of the Planet report, the most objective assessment that science can give today. We've reached 1.2 degrees Celsius of global mean surface temperature rise, the warmest temperature on Earth over the past 100,000 years. We have just scratched on 1.5 degrees Celsius as an annual mean in 2023. But what worries us most is this. We are starting to see an acceleration of warming over the past 50 years, 0.18 degrees Celsius per decade from 1970 to 2010. But then from 2014 onwards, it abruptly jumps up to 0.26 per decade. And if we follow this path, we will crash through 2 degrees Celsius within 20 years and hit 3 degrees Celsius by the year 2100, a disastrous outcome caused by us humans. We are seeing that this is now causing impacts across the entire economy. We're seeing bigger and bigger invoices being sent by the Earth system onto societies across the entire world in droughts, floods, heat waves, disease patterns, human-reinforced storms, scientifically attributed to human-caused climate change. 40 degrees Celsius of life-threatening heat across all continents occurring in 2023. 52 degrees Celsius hitting the over 1,000 who lost their lives at the Hajj pilgrimage in June in Mecca. 3 times higher climate change risks now attributed to our cause of climate change. 2023 up to 12,000 deaths, $200 billion of cost, just in the US up to $100 billion. This is seriously causing economic costs. We have scientifically in the past shown that this could cost a few percent of global GDP of the climate impacts caused by us. I can tell you that the latest scientific assessment is what you see on the screen here. An 18% loss of GDP by 2050 if we now follow the current path. This is equivalent to $38 trillion of loss per year in 2050. It's starting to hurt, both in human social costs and in economic costs. Is it surprising that we scientists are getting really, really nervous? But it's more. It's so much more than this. The first issue is buffering capacity. The second is the risk of crossing tipping points. And both are moving in the wrong direction. Buffering capacity is the Earth's system's ability to dampen shocks and stress. Like, for example, soaking up greenhouse gases in intact nature on land and in the ocean. And so far, Mother Earth has been so forgiving. Here we have the evidence. What you see here is the hockey stick of fossil fuel burning in red and deforestation in yellow. Is it this tremendous climate forcing that has caused the 1.2 degrees Celsius climate crisis so far? The answer is no. 53% of the carbon dioxide from fossil fuel burning and land system change have been soaked up by intact nature on land and in the ocean. It's only the blue sliver you see here, which remains in the atmosphere, causing the climate crisis so far. The problem is we have more and more scientific evidence of cracks in this system. Let's start on land. Land absorbs 31% of the carbon dioxide from our greenhouse gas emissions. We have more and more scientific evidence across so much research that the boreal forest in Canada or the temperate mixed forest in Germany and Russia are starting to lose their carbon uptake capacity. Did you know that the latest science shows that the part of the Amazon rainforest, planet Earth's richest biome on terrestrial land, has already tipped over and is no longer a carbon sink. It is today a carbon source. It's no longer helping us. But as if that was not enough, what really worries us today is the ocean. The ocean absorbs 90% of the heat caused by human-induced climate change. This is well understood, but what really worries us is what you see here. This is the latest data on sea surface temperature across the ocean. What you see here is from 1980 until today, how gradually the ocean surface just gets warmer and warmer. It's actually warming all the way down to 2,000 meters depth. This is well understood in science. It's a deep concern. It's well represented in the climate models. We understand it. Then suddenly in 2023, something happens. Temperatures just go completely off the charts, 0.4 degrees Celsius outside of the warmest temperature in previous years. What's happening? Are we at risk of pushing the planet out of the basin of attraction, the stability of the planet where we've been since we left the last ice age, the extraordinarily stable Holocene state? And if we pushed ourselves outside, drifting away unstoppably towards a hothouse Earth where we get self-amplified warming and losing life support on Earth. What could take us there? Well, we know it. It is if we cross tipping points. Big systems like the Greenland ice sheet, the overturning of heat in the North Atlantic, the coral reef systems, the Amazon rainforest, are tipping element systems. Push them too far and they will flip over from a desired state that helps us to a state that will self-amplify in the wrong direction, going from cooling and dampening to self-amplifying and warming. A rainforest tips over to a savanna state. Now, we have now mapped the 16 tipping element systems which are now scientifically cataloged that regulate the climate system. These 16, and you see the 5 in the ground zero on planet Earth in the Arctic, are connected via cascades through the ocean, particularly via the AMOC, the Atlantic overturning of heat in the ocean, all the way down to Antarctica. These are big biophysical systems that we all depend on, global commons for the stability of the planet. The question is, at what temperatures are they at risk of tipping from helping us to becoming self-amplifying foes? Well, for the first time, we have an attempt to answer that question. What you see here are the 16 tipping element systems on the y-axis, and in red you see the uncertainty range, the best estimates in science. Darker the red, the higher the risk of tipping. It's the temperature levels at which they're likely to cross the thresholds. The average temperature at which they are likely to tip is the yellow circle lines you see here. What this tells us is the following. 5 of these 16 are likely to cross their tipping points already at 1.5 degrees Celsius. The Greenland ice sheet, the West Antarctic ice sheet, abrupt thawing of permafrost, losing all tropical coral reef systems, and collapse of the Barents Sea ice. Just the 2 ice sheets hold 10-meter sea level rise, which would be unstoppable on the long term. Let's go to the Amazon basin. Again, the richest terrestrial ecosystem on land. Climate science estimates the risk of the Amazon rainforest tipping over irreversibly to a savanna at 3 to 5 degrees of global mean surface temperature rise. A really high temperature, unlikely even to be met over the next 70 years. But if we lose forest cover, the risk is that the system can tip already at 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius if we lose more than 20 to 25% of forest cover. So that's a very dangerous combination. Where are we today? We are at 1.2 degrees Celsius global mean surface temperature rise and 17% of deforestation. We are very close to a tipping point in the Amazon rainforest. Very close. What shall we do to avoid these unmanageable outcomes? Well, the IPCC is clear on the pathway. To stay under 1.5 degrees Celsius, to avoid crossing tipping points, we need to operate, to navigate within the global carbon budget that gives us a chance of holding 1.5. What remains for us is only 200 billion tons of carbon dioxide that we can continue emitting to have a 50% chance of holding 1.5. We emit today 40 billion tons of carbon dioxide per year, giving us 5 years at current rate of emission before we've consumed the budget. We are seriously running out of time. We must now be prepared for a very likely breaching of the 1.5 degrees Celsius planetary boundary on climate somewhere between 2030 and 2035, in 5 to 10 years' time, and then have at best a 30, 40-year period of overshoot before we can come back to 1.5 by the end of this century. We would exceed with 0.1 to 0.3 degrees Celsius the 1.5 limit, meaning up to 1.8 degrees Celsius. What does this tell us? Well, I can tell you there are 2 main messages. Message 1, buckle up. We know for certain, 100% certainty, that this means more droughts, more floods, more heat waves, more human-reinforced storms, more disease during one generation's time. 2023, the warmest year on record, will be looked back upon as a mild year. Message 2, why would the planet come back to 1.5 after overshoot? Well, the answer is very simple. The health of the planet must be kept intact. We must continue having a planet that can absorb 50% of the carbon dioxide. We must have a planet that crosses no tipping points. We must have a planet that remains healthy and keeping heat intact in the ocean. That is why we need planetary boundaries. The window is rapidly closing, but there is still some light in the window. We actually have evidence that we've reached a pivotal point, not only in terms of risk, but also in terms of opportunity to transform the world towards a safe and just future for humanity. Linear change is no longer an option. The only option is exponential change. We know that the only currency that matters is speed and scale. We also need to become stewards of the entire planet. We need to now recognize from local to global level that we're all so intertwined that we must govern the entire planet. I know that is very daunting, but what choice do we have when on the line is the future of our children on planet Earth? And we have the solutions. We know that solving the planet crisis is not utopia. There are so many positive items as well. The most important one in my mind is that we have ample evidence that citizens across the world, a majority of them, care about nature and climate. They trust climate science, they're concerned about climate change, and they want solutions. And the second key factor is that we have so much evidence today that the solutions are not only available, but if we implement them, we get a more healthy, stable, secure future with the jobs and the economies that can compete and provide livelihoods into the future. This means, dear friends, that solving the planetary crisis is not only necessary, it is possible, and we all win if we succeed. Thank you very much.
The video, if you want to look at it again, it's called The Tipping Point, Points of Climate Change and Where We Stand by Johan Rockström. So that provides a very good segue to the next session, but I understand our minister has to leave. So we would like to thank the Honourable Minister for being with us here this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain in your seats as the Minister leaves for his next meeting. We will bring on the next session, which is a quick overview of the document. We will actually share highlights of the 22-page document, and then we will go into a panel. So I think we have the QR code for the document, if I can get that flashed up very quickly. If you'd like to download that, if you'd like to take a